Hello everyone, I'm Reza Rad from Radacad, Power BI MVP consultant trainer. Happy to be here with you. My favorite feature is custom functions in Power Query. Welcome to the Power Query magic.
Welcome, Reza.
Thank you.
Let me go through this list here a second. So, CEO at Radacad, Chairman and Director at Power BI Summit, Chairman and Director at Dfinity Conference, Microsoft Regional Director since 2018, Microsoft Data Platform MVP since 2011, and the list goes on. Okay. Do you actually ever sleep?
I have a lot of chairs, you know.
Wow. What keeps you going? What motivates you to do these events and take part in all these things?
I think having a good team is an important one. So there are a lot of things that Leila does. I take the credit for that.
Excellent.
But yeah, all in all, I enjoy doing things with Power BI, Power Query, and that's, I think, what keeps me motivated.
Yeah. Do you get to the point where you're doing these things sometimes and you're thinking, why have I taken this on? and it's only when you get to the end of it that you think, oh, that was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that actually that happens a lot. I also like that happens a lot, that I go through some practice. Let's say I find the data that I want to be in different format. I do a lot of things. In the middle of that, I think, well, does it really worth that much effort putting it into it? And but I do it sometimes anyway. And at the end, yeah, definitely is rewarding.
Yeah.
It also happens on my blog articles sometimes, and more funny with that, like because I write quite often. Sometimes I'm in the middle of a blog post, I wrote everything, I built my demos, and like one last paragraph, I realize, well, I might have already written about it, and then I go and search in Google, I find I already have a blog button.
Awesome. That is good. And I think we first met at SQL Saturday in Perth, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. I've lost track of time now. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was perhaps 2016, 17.
Yeah. And, since then, you seem to have sort of got involved in an ever-growing list of events and achievements. And I saw you the other day, you posted that you'd been awarded Fast Track Recognized Solution Architect.
Yes, it has a really long, long name.
So what is that?
So that is actually, like, there's a process for that to get, I won't call it certified, or let's say recognized, that there's an assessment on your architecture view of the Power Platform. In my case, it was on the Power BI side of it. For example, I help a lot of clients in their Power BI architecture, how to set up their data flow, their data set, their overall workspace practice, their ETL, like in general, in architectural view. It involves a bit of process, but after that process, luckily I get recognized among many other people.
Yeah.
So thankful for Microsoft for providing that, and anyone helping me achieving it.
And then also with the Microsoft, sort of with a regional director role as well. So, how does that come about? What's involved with that?
Yeah, Microsoft Regional Director is probably one of the most confusing names ever put on a title. Like, because you think, well, Microsoft means working at Microsoft, probably regional means it is related to a specific region, perhaps Asia Pacific, or I don't know, Asia, New Zealand. And then director probably means I'm directing something.
It involves none of those things?
It involves none of those things. So I'm not working at Microsoft.
Excellent.
And I'm not really directing anything. And I'm not regional. Of course, I'm based in New Zealand, and I know many more people in my region, but that doesn't make anything regional. Basically, the regional director is just a title that, similar to MVP, is like a recognition. If you have a broader view than an MVP is more like a deep dive view in a specific technology. Like someone is really good at Power BI, someone is really good at, let's say, SQL Server or Power Apps or things like that, where regional director is a little bit broader view on some of these technologies, and also understanding other rival technologies, and being able to advise Microsoft on what route to take in the future, and in terms of like vision of the technology, how to go through that.
Okay.
It's not like MVP. MVP is based on your community contribution. Regional director is a little bit different.
But again, sort of more meetings, more discussions with people, more.
Yeah.
So what actually pays the bills these days? Because you seem to do all these, all these activities that, essentially appear to be free. The blog, the YouTube channels, the events that, I know there's a fee for some of these events, but I'm sure you're not making any money from any of these. So what actually pays the bills?
That is right, and we try to spend as much as we get revenue from the Microsoft on the conference to make it better. So normally that doesn't really make a good channel of revenue, but we do a lot of training. Power BI training is probably in general, BI training, Power BI, most of it is probably like more than 80% of where the whole Radicad revenue is coming from. The other 20% is more on consulting, and that is not, let's say, big, huge consulting development work. It's more like advisory and things like that. In terms of Power BI training, we do have clients basically everywhere. We do some remote training for example, some clients in US, in different parts of Europe, in Australia and New Zealand, of course. And we do also have some public training, but mostly, like these days with the COVID, those private training is more popular.
Yeah. And
talking with the camera.
The first few training courses I ran after COVID hit, the online ones, they were okay. People were quite sort of still novel, having your camera on and doing all this sort of stuff. And then I just found it turned into cameras off, microphones off, and you can just be speaking to a screen for half a day.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep motivated then. Have you found,
that's
that
right.
sort of thing?
Yeah, and training like a full day online can be quite exhausting. Not just for attendees, but also for the instructor. We found that if we break our trainings into half days, it is better. Recently, we even break it more. Like we do 2 hours training a day.
Yeah.
That is more manageable. People can still do their work, and 2 hours sitting in front of a camera is not a big deal. So totally different from pre-COVID.
Yeah, we evolve and we adapt, and it's a good lesson. And you mentioned, so you live in New Zealand.
Yes.
So is that in Auckland, or sort of just outside Auckland, or?
Yeah, Auckland, a little bit like in the north side of Auckland. It is still part of Auckland, but it is in an area called Whangaparua. It's close to some bays, which makes it nice. It's a little bit far from city. I mean, in a scale of New Zealand, it's far from city. In a scale of Australia, probably it is close to city.
But I love New Zealand. I've been traveling around there a couple of times. Have you actually had a chance to travel around, or have you sort of just been head down, getting on with stuff?
No, we have actually traveled in different areas. We have been in South Island a few times already, both for the work stuff, like training, SQL Saturday, South Island, which have been there in Christchurch, and also for some going around in Queenstown. We have been in Nelson, different areas. It's really nice place, South Island. I mean, North Island is also good. I like Rotorua, I like Bay of Islands, different. I would consider, like, in terms of vegetation and things like that, these two looks really like two different countries.
Yes, they do. I agree. It's sort of much more rugged and mountainous in the south, and then sort of some beautiful beaches and things up in the north. And Bay of Islands, I
That's
love.
right, yeah.
Little town of Russell and places like this.
Yes, yeah, that is
very
really
nice
nice
places.
place.
And so, how did you end up in New Zealand? And when did you move there?
We moved here actually in, when was that? 2012.
Right.
January 2012, I think. 31st of January 2012, we came to New Zealand.
Okay.
Like it was quite a interesting story actually. When you are, like, I'm originally from Iran, Layla originally from Iran. When you are from Iran, traveling to other countries, I mean, there's no problem in traveling to other countries, but getting, let's say, a type of visa that you can work, study, and those kind of things, you don't have so many options. There are like limited options. Like we tried going to Canada for some time. I think we started the application in probably like 2008, 2009. It took like 3-4 years and we didn't hear back anything at all. So then in 2012, we said, well, let's try New Zealand. That time, Layla was also searching for a place that she can continue on her PhD.
Right.
And considering that, you also need to consider places that there are good universities that you can continue on PhD. And New Zealand was one of those places. We applied and we got our visa in 20 days. 20 days.
Okay.
And that is how it happened. We came to New Zealand with thinking that, well, if something is not good, at least we have our Canada as a backup and we'll go there. Not to say anything bad about Canada. I have a lot of good Canadian friends. But we came to New Zealand. We loved this place. We applied for residency and we just stayed here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's it is a beautiful place there. So.
Yes.
So in Iran then, what did you study at university?
I was doing computer engineering, more on hardware side, like how electronic works and things like that. I didn't have that many courses on software. We had few, of course, like programming in Pascal, in C++, those really old languages, some database courses. Yeah, that was what I studied. I think it was between 1998 to 2002. I think.
What sort of the computers then? What sort of RAM and spec would have been a good computer back then?
I think that time we had something called Pentium 4, Pentium 5.
Okay.
I don't really remember how much was the RAM size of it, but I remember I didn't had actually a laptop. I had a whole case I moved with myself because the city that I went to university was far from the city that I born. Like I born in a northern city in Iran. It's right beside Caspian Sea. Weather-wise, very similar to Auckland. But then I went to university in a city that is more like desert style, in the middle of Iran. It was like totally different climate, and it was a long trip as well. So I normally took train, and I had this case with a monitor.
Oh, really? I'm sure it wasn't very light either. Probably
no, not at all.
Heavy. Yeah. Awesome. And compare that to today then, sort of what computer setup are you running now? Have you got some super duper laptop that's all fired up with gigabytes of RAM chucked in there?
Not like compared to many others who are using like 64 gigabyte and things like that. Not that many. I'm on a 16 gigabyte RAM.
That's modest.
It's an Asus ZenBook Duo, which has a dual screen, which is quite nice. A lot of monitors. It's like
so how many monitors do you have?
At the moment is like 6.
6. Awesome. That's pretty good. I saw Alberto Ferrari put a tweet up the other day with his monitor setup. I think he had about 6 as well.
Alberto, I think has even one more, something like that. Yeah, it has like two stories.
Yeah, there's double decker monitors.
Yeah.
So in the past then, what job or role or position do you think influenced you most to where you are today? Was there a person that you sort of learned a lot from, or was there some sort of job you did that you went, oh, I really like this sort of thing, or has it just been a sort of a bit of a flow from various different areas?
I think getting into the technology was more kind of a flow, because when I was at university, like we had a internship period. Like these days, universities here also have that internship period that the student goes, let's say, to a summer intern or something like that.
Yeah.
I went to an internship period in a company, and they've been using Visual Basic 6 and SQL Server 6.5 back in the days. It was like very old technology. They've been building like Windows application, commercial Windows applications.
Right.
So I learned about that. I really enjoyed writing code, programming, and things like that. Then I became, after the university, I became more kind of like a developer, .NET developer those days, when the .NET came, like C# .NET and things like that. But very fast, probably like in a year or two, I became really interested in how database works. I enjoyed working with the data, designing database. Then I wrote a lot of database scripts, like SQL scripts.
Okay.
And I get into data transformation technologies, SSIS, DTS, those times actually, called data transformation services, something like that, then changed to SQL Server integration services. And that was how I ended up into the whole world of BI, which after a few years, I think it was probably in 2011, which I get involved more with Power Pivot and SQL Server analysis services of Tabular, because before that we had multidimensional. So gradually it ended up towards Power BI. That is the technology side. But in terms of me being interested in actually like development stuff, I think that came from my dad's being a wood carpenter. So we used to go to his workshop, trying to building things with wood and nails and things like that. That gave me the like good feeling of creating something.
Right.
That is the feeling that I still love.
So bizarre. We've got a bit of an overlap here then, because my grandfather was a carpenter, and I used to play in his woodshed, playing about with all the tools, and the sort of, you've got lathes and all sorts of things to play around with. And then I did a year out from my university course, and I started just playing about with, at the time it was Lotus 123 and VBA. Well, not VBA, but whatever the macro code was in Lotus back in the day. And that sort of, just enjoying that sort of thing, you just start to develop in there and stuff as well. So, awesome. That's really cool.
That is good.
So then let me talk about your blog, right? So I went into your blog. I clicked on the previous article page, then the previous article page, then the previous page. And I noticed up the top, there's a little sort of page counter. So eventually I got back to page 81 of your blog, right? So this isn't 81 articles. This is 81 pages of articles, which is intense. And the first post I came back to was 2009, so October 23rd, 2009. Working with flat files dynamically in SSIS package. Okay, so
that is right.
So, and you've mentioned SSIS just briefly as well. Now, I know nothing about SSIS other than it's sort of, you use it for transforming data, and that's about it. But can you just give a brief sort of overview of what it is, and does it relate to Power Query in any way? Is it sort of a like for like? Is it very different? What's your thoughts?
I would say it is Power Query combined with a little bit of other things. In general, it's a data transformation technology, very similar to Power Query. When we do have options in Power Query to get data from different sources, in SSIS we also have data sources. When we do data transformation in Power Query, such as pivoting, merging, things like that, we have those kind of transformations also in SSIS. I would say probably more developer-y way of doing things than in Power Query, because Power Query is so intuitive, everything is really simple. But in there, you should be a little bit familiar of how to do things. For example, you get source from one place connected to multiple destinations, things like that. So in terms of the data flow of SSIS, I would say that is very similar to Power Query. But in SSIS, we also have other things, something called control flow. That is something we don't have in Power Query. And that control flow can do a lot of interesting other things as well. Like, for example, based on my data, I can send emails, I can call an API, I can loop through specific things, do something about that. I can run a C# code. So actually you can integrate your data flow concept with other things. If you want to compare that with Power Query, probably you can achieve that with combining Power Query and Power Automate together.
Right.
To build that kind of thing.
And is it purely sort of script based then, SSIS? Are you writing the code, or is there actually a user interface type? Okay.
User interface, mostly user interface. So yeah, it is not that much scripting. Probably your scripting would be like 30% of the time.
Right.
Is like it is a little bit more than scripting we do in Power Query, because in Power Query there are scenarios that you may not even write a line of script. You do everything with graphical interface. In SSIS, there are few, for example, expressions you need to write here, right there. But it is not like a block of program. You have to write things. You can just drag this component. This is my data source. Drag another component. This is merge. I'm merging it with this. So it is a nice UI
and
environment.
Is it got a choice of then destinations of that output?
That is one other big benefit of that compared to Power Query, that you can write your data in any places you want.
Hopefully Power Query will, in the future, some magical future time, will have some ability to push it somewhere else.
To do that, Actually, at the moment, you can, like one of the data sources in SSIS is called Excel source, which actually brings data from Excel. And in there, you can copy your Power Query script. And if you do that, then you are actually running your Power Query script, and then you can choose what destination you want to have.
Yeah.
Like a workaround for storing it in different places.
Okay. And then, saw on your blog, Introduction to Power BI Designer.
Oh yeah, that was like
posted May 15, 2015.
2015, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the first few months of 2015, Power BI was called Power BI Designer.
Yeah, and it's actually your first YouTube video as well.
Oh, nice.
I went back onto your YouTube channel. I did a little reverse date search, and that was the video for it. I'd totally forgotten what it even looked like. And so I was looking at the video going, oh, yeah, I forgot that even existed. It wasn't around for very long, was it?
No, it was only for a few months. And it was very similar to Power BI Desktop, earlier versions of Power BI Desktop, of course, not these days.
Yeah. And it seemed to take that Power View element from Excel and sort of just take all the bits, but without the rest of Excel, and then just sort of plonk it on a bit of a separate app. But then following up closely on your blog in July 2015, so a few months later, was what's new in Power BI Desktop 2.0, general availability.
Yeah.
And then you sort of give us a full intro, and that looks a much more like what we now know.
That is correct. That version 2 actually was literally when Microsoft really called it, let's say, Power BI Desktop that time. And that blog article, I remember that went quite viral because there was not so many explanation about what is included in that version and things like that. And when I wrote it, a lot of people liked it, a lot of comments on that, which bring me to the point that probably I need to focus more on Power BI Desktop then.
Okay, yeah. So that then the because then you'd sort of, before I just move on to the rookie to rock star sort of series as well, because I think that's probably where I first came across your stuff was that. Just in that post that you did in July 2015, you called out a fact in that blog post that one of the things that impressed you was that you could have the Power Query editor window open and still work on the Power BI report itself. You could do the two. And I'll sort of semi-quote you here. You then say, I hope this feature will soon be available in Power Query for Excel.
Yes, yeah, that is right.
6 years later, we're still hoping. So the Rookie to Rockstar series, the books, then you sort of started to almost like serialize your blog posts in essence.
Yes,
and it's pulling together. It's a great idea. And has those been popular? And did you you seem to have grown the sort of content, and you must have put a lot of effort into there. So just talk about that. What your thoughts were about it and how it evolved.
Yeah, so I started writing about Power BI much more after that blog post of what's new in Power BI. Not Gen 2, but version 2.0. Yeah. After that, I started writing a lot about Power BI. And after a few months, I realized, well, I have a lot of content. They are not, let's say, categorized. They are not organized. So let's do just a free PDF book version of these, call it Power BI from Rookie to Rockstar. And it worked. But then, again, I had much more content into that. Then I realized, well, if this is all in one book, it is going to be over 1,000 pages. So let's split it into multiple books. One book on Essentials, one book on Power Query, DAX. But since that time, a lot has passed, and I have a lot of new articles that I haven't updated. Perhaps this is something I should do sometimes in the next few months if I get time to update that Rookie to Rockstar.
You just seem to have so much spare time, Reza. I can't believe you haven't got round to it yet.
Yeah.
It changes so quick though, doesn't it?
Definitely. Especially with the updates every month on the Power BI desktop. We also have updates from Power BI service team. We have updates from Power BI report server team, like Power BI mobile updates. So many changes. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you also been using data flows and getting into that side of things as well?
Yes. Yep. I'm using that a lot these days, enjoying that. And I also advise a lot of customers to use that because it is basically like the same Power Query they do, but it is more reusable than just doing it in one file.
Yeah.
Well, it still requires a bit of things like using those in Excel, like the data from Dataflow in Excel, which hopefully will become available soon.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of common use case for data flows that you've come across or you've reused a couple of times? Or
one of the most common use cases, I would say, as soon as I realize that I have one table that I may need it in multiple files, in two different Power BI files, as soon as I get to that situation, I normally go ahead and create a data flow for that. Date table, time table, currency table, this happens a lot because you use it in many Power BI files. But also for other things, like, for example, a product table, I may use it in inventory model, I might use it in sales model. Those are also good scenarios. And converting your query to data flow is not that much easy as well. You'll go and copy it, paste it there. You just need to do some connection stuff and things like that. Hopefully you'll be fine if you haven't used any of the functions that may not work over there.
Copy paste, cross the fingers.
Yes.
Normally works. Any frustrations or sort of warnings for folks sort of starting to use data flows, or is there?
I would say the licensing would be the most challenge. Like in Power BI desktop, doing Power Query, like you can do anything in Power Query. There is no limit. I mean, unless one thing, calling those AI functionality.
Yeah.
Except that basically you can literally do anything in Power Query, in Power BI Desktop, and that can be done even with Power BI free version, right?
Yeah.
Those AI function also, there's a workaround for that. Like if you call that Cognitive Services API yourself from Power Query script, you don't even need extra license for that. But when it comes to data flow, the situation is a little bit different, because in data flow we are working on a capacity which is hosted in the service. There are some of the functionalities that are limited. Like one of those that I found a lot limiting is different type of entities, computed entity especially, which is good for performance, but considering that some may not have Power BI premium license, that is a limitation for them. They can't really reference from a query that other query also exists and is loading, right? That is
and that's the sort of thing as well, isn't it? It's the loading of that other query, which is something I didn't quite realize when I first started playing about with this, was that if you disable load, you can reference another query.
Yeah.
But as soon as you want to load both,
in some situation you want that original one.
Yeah.
Let's say that is the full transaction table. My new one is more like aggregated, and I want to load them both.
Yes.
That can be a challenge. But this PPU license can be helpful, premium per user. At least there is a cheaper way for some small businesses to use those. So in general, I would say it is a little bit more limiting in terms of features based on the license you've got in data flow than Power Query and Power BI Desktop. But I would say it would be more useful in the future usage of Power BI to use data flow.
Yeah. And in terms of ownership of data flows as well, so if you're building something, then is it still the case that somebody else has to take over? Because I haven't played with it for a few months now. Somebody else has to take over. I think at the moment
it is still there. It is still like that, but that is one of the things that is on an active backlog. Hopefully will be
one day
will be available soon.
Hopefully not 6 or 7 years and so when did you first come across Power Query at all? Was it in an MVP summit, or did you? I
had an earlier view on that even than MVP Summit.
Right.
So and that was interesting. Matt Mason, you probably heard.
Yes.
So Matt Mason used to be in SSIS team. That is how I knew him before coming into Power BI. So he was in SSIS team. I was doing a lot of SSIS, so I know him. And then we went to different conferences. In one conference, it was in Hong Kong. I don't really remember the date, but I think it was 2013, something like that. We've been in the speaker room, and he was showing me like a very let's say first demo of something, an add-on for Excel called Data Explorer.
Oh, okay.
And that was the very first name of Power Query. It didn't have all of these menu options that you see in Power Query these days. It was just a very few options. But even those, the ability to be in Excel, do some transformations, just as simple as that, and doing it through graphic, that was really amazing. That was when I first actually seen that. And then later on, we had an MVP Summit in Seattle. We have seen that. And I think after a few months, that became really general available.
Right.
The first version came in 2013 at some point, I remember.
Yeah. And, it's pretty, I think everybody who sees it and discovers it just generally thinks, wow, this is good.
That is right. Yeah, that is definitely right. And early days, it didn't have that many graphical options. So for doing a lot of things, you had to write scripts. And that was how I got involved in M scripting a lot, because these days if you are doing Power Query, you can do most of that without writing M script. But those days you had to do more than this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then you you learn more of the
That is right,
technique
yes.
underneath and the technology and the syntax that you need, because you haven't got a lovely button to click.
Yeah, that's right. And there was a PDF file, the formula specification, which is still there. I think it's like 115 pages PDF file, can be found in Microsoft if you search for Power Query formula specification, which is really hard book to read, or hard file to read. It's really written in a geeky way. Like time by time I went to that, I looked at one part, one formula, tried to do it in Power Query. It was fun. It was also hard because that's not an easy file to read.
Yeah. Have you done some documentation work for Microsoft?
Yes, yeah, I've done some recently for the data flow, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So some of recent data flow articles in Power Query documentation are those that I have been working, actually. Me and Miguel Escobar. Miguel was doing more on Power Query in Power BI desktop side. I was doing on the data flow side. I think I had something like 16, 17 articles in there. Not all of them was, let's say, totally new articles. Some of them has been an article that I just updated it with some new content. But in general, it was all about different aspects of data flow, how to convert your Power Query in Power BI desktop to data flow, what is computed entity, what is linked entity, what is a standard data flow, analytical data flow, all those kind of things around.
Okay. And again, sort of more time.
Yeah, that was quite interesting experience to work with the team as well. The Power Query team in Microsoft, they are really lovely people.
Yeah.
It was great to work with them.
Awesome. And I guess from running training courses as well, you're seeing, people discovering this stuff for the first time. For me, a joy of training is showing people Power Query.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you got any stories about people sort of just eyes lighting up, or
Yeah, the whole Power Query looks amazing for people, especially for those who are coming from Excel background. But for example, when I talk about things such as column by example, that is like the wow moment mostly. Or things that Power Query does really simply, like splitting a column by delimiter and things like that. These are really simple transformations, but it can do immense help in a lot of type of data we get from text files.
Yeah. Are you still finding that clients are still running on exported CSVs, exported Excel files? It doesn't seem to matter to me what size of organization I work with. It's still a lot.
There are always that kind of data. Yeah, definitely. Even if there is a data warehouse, even if there is, let's say, enterprise BI team, there are always some exported CSV Excel files sitting somewhere that needs to be analyzed.
Yeah. I the one that gets me still is the XLS exports, which Power Query doesn't really like, and it can have some weird sort of performance issues. And I've even had a number be wrong once because of a date transformation thing. It was, there's still those exports out there.
Yeah, those are a little bit hard, as you said. Yeah. Power Query doesn't like them.
So, lesson for everybody: try not to use XLS files. Please try and get some other export. CSV probably, is a better option.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what's your worst ever presentation moment? So I had a chat with Lars Schreiber recently, and we were talking about this. So have you got anything that's gone horribly wrong?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of those actually. Like pre-COVID life, I've been doing a lot of presentation, and when you are doing a lot of things, the chance of having something going wrong in it also goes high. I remember, there are a few, but one of them, for example, I remember I was presenting in Past Summit. I think that was 2013. I was the last session of the last day of the conference, among few others. So basically, when it was my time to present, a lot of people already been leaving with their with their bags and luggage and everything like that. But anyway, I had the session. I had some attendees as well, and when the session started, I normally use this, like the wireless mouse. I mean, these days everyone uses wireless mouse. Yeah. Those days, like not everybody used wireless mouse, but still, I had that. And I didn't realize that I'm using that for a long time, and the battery went flat. And I'm one of those guys that is terrible with the touchpad. I can't do anything with that touchpad at all. So that went flat. I asked attendees. No one ever there had one mouse or not even a battery.
No way.
So I had to do all of these, and my presentation was heavy, like demo heavy. So I had to do like this.
Oh, nightmare.
Yeah, I think I went probably through like 60% of my content than the entire thing, but it went okay. I mean, audience learned something, but it didn't went the way that I wanted to go.
That is good. So do you always carry a backup mouse now?
Oh, yes. I make sure that I have a full set of battery, not just for mouse, for other things as well, in case they run out.
Always have the batteries. Awesome. And you said there were a few. Is there one other you have?
Oh, yeah. Like before, like when I was back in Iran, so my presentation was all in Persian. Like in Iran, like the main language to talk is Farsi. Everyone talks Farsi. Okay. Like English is fine, but you never really talk English. So the first presentation that actually I had outside of Iran, I was in front of audience, and I was going to deliver it in English, so I had some rehearsal before that. Okay, this is going to do this take this much and that much, and what I didn't realize is that I'm explaining things in English more than what a normal English person would do. Like, for example, if this sentence is like this long, if an English person is saying it, I was saying this sentence, another sentence that have the same meaning, another sentence that carry again the same meaning, like saying that 4 or 5 times, which ended up that I was in the slide 5 and I had only 5 minutes from my session presentation time, and there wasn't still too many more slides. That was another interesting story that I tried to work on my English a little bit. I'm still not that good at English, but at least I can manage the time.
I'm just in awe of all folk who do this stuff in their second language. It's not only are you learning like the programming language, you're then becoming an expert in explaining it in a different language, and to have the guts to get up and just do a presentation in front of an audience in a foreign language, just full salute and full honor. Goes to all of you, because it's just amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So time for my 5 impossible questions. So these are totally hard, impossible. You're not meant to get the answer. Power Query questions. Okay, they're totally unfair. And let's just get into it. So question 1. We're in Power BI Desktop, and we click on Get Data, and we go to the Other section. Okay, other sources, basically.
More.
Yeah, more. And you then have all file, database, Power Platform, Azure, online services, and then at the bottom there's other. Mm-hmm. Name any 3 things under other.
Okay, one is web.
Yes.
One is Exchange.
Yes.
Okay, one other. Blank query, maybe?
Yes. He's got it. Well done. Okay. And yes, round of applause. Can you go for a 4th? Do you want to go for a bonus point?
I'm not sure. Is Active Directory? Did I say
Active Directory gets a bonus point. Active Directory. Very good. Okay, so under data flows, is there a connector for Google Analytics?
I think it is, or I hope it is.
No.
No, it is not. Oh,
No, unless I'm mistaken. All right, I'm not going to deduct a point because I'm sure it should be there, but I was looking yesterday and I couldn't find it and I needed it.
that's strange.
So I don't think it's there, but I may be wrong.
Maybe if you paste the M code in there, it works.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'll try that because it does sometimes work, doesn't it? Even though the
Yeah.
actual connector button isn't there.
Yes,
but
that's right.
I'll give that a go. Okay, in the Power Query editor, you're in the View tab. So name one option that is in desktop but isn't in data flows.
In the View tab, something
View
that
tab.
is in desktop, not in data flows. We have formula bar in there. We have query string, query setting in there. We have diagram view in there. What else? Data quality or those mono speed thing.
Actually, you're right. There's a few. I've just had
okay.
I've had another look. So the column distribution one,
Oh, okay.
that's not
Not in the.
in data flows as a obvious button. Formula bar, not in data flows.
Oh,
It's
but
hidden.
data flow always show the formula bar.
Yeah, that's the trap question. That's the
Right.
trick.
Yeah, I see.
Right. So there's a script drop down, so you can actually see the formula bar or the actual script. So there's a different button. The other one is query dependencies.
But we have that diagram view. Oh, it is called diagram view.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I
called
see.
something different. See, impossible question.
And it is also at the bottom right corner in data flow versus in here. Yeah.
Okay, so
That was good.
is there a Power Query function with the word RAD in it? In honor of your surname? Is there any Power Query function?
You don't mean random or
No, it's got to have the 3 letters in a row, RAD, but it's part of a Power Query function.
gradient. Or
No, there is one though. There is one. Any
no, never
guesses?
found it. Actually, if I found it, I probably put it somewhere in my blog.
So it is Teradata.database.
Oh, that is interesting.
Teradata database.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I should consider working with Teradata a little bit more. We have something in common.
And last question. In the query editor, and we're in Power BI desktop, there's a little help icon in the top right-hand corner, a little blue help icon. What page do you end up on when you click on that? Any idea what?
The Power Query documentation page, like it is called.
No, that would make sense,
Yes.
but no.
Where does it go?
It goes to the general support page that tells you whether there's any service outages.
Okay. Which normally isn't that much helpful.
And then there's some extra information about learning Power BI and stuff underneath that. But yeah, it's just a
Okay.
general support page. I think they need to fix that up.
Yeah, these days that we have the powerquery.com, it should just point
should take
there.
you there.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, crystal ball time. So you're looking into the future.
Yeah.
Anything in particular you'd like to see happen with Power Query or even data flows or the Power BI world even? What? Any particular
I
things?
would like to be able to run a Power Query script from a .NET application. That is something I always wanted from the beginning of the time.
Okay.
And it never happened. I really like to have that because if we have it, a lot of our application developers can also use Power Query. It is not then a tool just for business analysts, for BI developer. It is also for a lot of people who are developing applications and they are dealing a lot with data. So if they have Power Query, they can do these things much easier.
Right.
I would really like that. But
on the
I'm
wish list.
one of the very few who really like that.
It's quite a niche case, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Like every MVP summit, I went there, I raised my hand when Power Query team talked, and I said, I want this feature. Who else wanted? And then they all like look at me.
Excellent. And what's on your schedule, your busy schedule for the coming 6 months, 12 months? You got Dfinity.
Oh yes, we have
up?
Dfinity in Auckland coming up. Hopefully we have you down here as well. You can come travel,
I've got
bubble.
just a few arms.
Yeah. And a lot of planning for that, of course. Working on a few books ideas. They are at the moment just ideas. One of them is the data flow itself. I'm still putting around things to see can I fit it in a concept. And work on bringing something like that. And we are also having something like a Dfinity Australia in our horizon.
Yeah.
We may do that.
Yeah,
We probably need, if we want to do it, we probably need to talk with you and a lot of our Aussie friends to see how that might happen. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. And where's the best where's the best place that people can find you? The Radacad site or?
Yeah, perhaps Radacad site. Like LinkedIn and Twitter also.
Yeah.
I'm normally looking at these social media channels. Facebook, I may not that much, but LinkedIn and Twitter, I check it quite regularly. And the Radacad website, of course. Like there is a contact us button beside it that people can get in touch if they have any questions. That normally is good for me as well, because it might lead to another blog article.
That's the thing. It's those questions, isn't it? It leads on
Yes.
to those other. Yes, awesome. And then wrapping things up. So I like to ask my guests if they've ever had any brushes with fame or met any famous people, or if there's any little known facts or talents that they have.
Famous people, probably no. I haven't been that much lucky. I've met a couple of famous people, but those are probably some Persian famous people that is only famous to Persians.
Okay.
It is not famous to other. No, I wouldn't consider me seeing them except if we consider the Power BI family. I have met a lot of famous people in that group, of course. I've been fortunate to do that. I do. You said about some other things I do as well. I do playing guitar a little bit.
Okay.
These are
so
fingers.
Classical Spanish. What?
Yeah, that is right. Classic flamenco style.
Yeah.
Not that much as I used to do back in university time, like 20 years ago.
Right.
But a little bit playing here and there.
Yeah. Do you find it sort of just helps you switch off a bit when you're playing?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it helps a lot. And I enjoy the whole process of going through a new piece of music and memorizing it and doing it in different styles. I like that.
Excellent. And then one last requirement of coming onto Power Query Magic, you need to leave 2 of your own articles. So your favorite article and your most popular one. So what are you leaving us with? What's your most popular?
The most popular is the one that I wrote very long time ago. It's about append versus merge. Every time I go to YouTube or my blog, I see that has the most
Right.
view.
Yeah.
Which is quite good, because combining data sets is one of the most important things that a lot of people do. So that is the most popular. And the one that I like most is I have an article which is not that popular as this one, which is about some of the things that, one of the things that you can do in M, but you cannot do using the Power Query graphical interface. The whole subject of that is that when you group data in Power Query using group by, it gives you some aggregations such as count, sum, minimum, maximum, things like that. But for example, it doesn't give you the option to get the first item in a list.
Yes.
Like, for example, I group all the transactions by the product ID, but then I want the sales amount of the first transaction. Something like this isn't really that much complicated, but it is something that we cannot do with graphical interface, not at the moment. You can do that with a small change in Power Query and M. And the reason that I like it a lot is that this helps people to understand that there are much more things can be done in M, which if they just stick to the graphical interface, they don't see it.
I got to say, I love that article. That helped me out.
Thank you.
Helped me out.
Thank you.
I definitely Googled that one. It popped up. I needed it. I used it. And I once in a while, I have to jump back in there because I can't remember all of this stuff at all. So thoroughly appreciate that one. That exact article has helped me.
I'm glad it helped.
And finally, I'm going to strand you on a desert island, and you're allowed to take one item with you. It can be a luxury or something you might find useful, but it must begin with the letter M in honor of the M language. So if you were going to take something, what would it be?
Something.
It could be something to keep you entertained. It could be something that you might miss. It could be something useful. So,
And it should be with letter M.
it's got to start with the letter M, which is the real killer here.
Music instrument?
Oh, musical instrument. I'll give you that. You can have that. I like it.
That, yeah. I think that would be good.
Awesome.
Even if I die from starving, I still play something.
yeah. You can entertain yourself on your way out.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Reza, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Pleasure.
I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was fantastic to be with you and the audience.
And I'll leave links for the Reza's articles and things and to his site and etc. in the comments. Reza, keep sharing the magic, and I will watch you later on.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.